Back again wearing my main hat, not my other hat I wore last time I was speaking in Sydney. So I'll talk about SmartSat CRC. Many of you know about us already, but I hope I also give a little bit of extra information to fill you in on some gaps that do come up sometimes. Is this audio okay? I'm hearing two versions.
Yeah, good.
Giving a bit of amplification. So SmartSat has a huge collection of partners here. There's a sort of an onion structure here, so the core partners in the middle there are the ones who have tipped in the most money to our research program and get to sort of set the overall agenda. We have an outer layer of supporting partners here, and then the Aurora Space Cluster in this third layer, and then the external stakeholders. So SmartSat was one of the first sort of major organisations set up as the Australian space industry started to develop in recent years, and we took a whole bunch of partners with us. Not every organisation is here, but a large portion of the Australian space industry is there. We do a lot of researchy things. We have a whole bunch of research projects. At last count, 83 of them have been approved, and most of those are underway or completed. We have 4 professorial chairs at the moment, and we have 32 PhD scholarships awarded already. Our target is 72 PhDs to be completed over our 7-year term. We're about halfway through that 7-year term now. We also have a few other activities there that you can see. I won't go into that at the moment. Really important thing about how we're sort of organised, our organising principles, is that we are user-informed, industry-driven, and research-powered. And so user-informed means end users, and we have 3 different end-user advisory boards. And so these are organisations who will need space technology to do what they want to do. So you can look at them as customers. There's also a whole bunch of public good kind of end users in there as well. And so we always want them in our research projects to guide the research, what's actually needed for the end user. Industry-driven, so industry actually contributes 50% of the cash budget to SmartSat CRC. The other 50% is Commonwealth match funding. So of course, the industry partners really get to drive a lot of the research, and we expect them involved in every research project, either to bring specialist knowledge to help us understand the commercialisation pathway, and in some cases they also participate in the research with time or infrastructure or background IP or something like that. And finally, the most important asset we have, and many of you are in the room here today, is the professional researchers who do the research, and that's where the money goes to, and it's mostly universities, although there are some other partners as well. So I mentioned before the end user advisory boards. So early in SmartSat's period, we went out and we collected their priorities, and these 3 documents are published on our website at the link you see at the bottom. So if you're ever wondering what is SmartSat interested in researching, go to these documents. And I'll just flick through some of the things here already. Now, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek. This is my own interpretation. You know, CubeSat's needed here. It's probably where CubeSats are going to be the most relevant to SmartSat's research program. I wouldn't say it's the only one. But in our defence and national security sector priorities, there's a whole bunch of topics there where obviously CubeSats could help with early prototyping and demonstrations, and in fact are helping. We have a few projects already. Not to say that these ones aren't relevant, but those are the main focus. In the mining and energy sector priorities, I didn't see so much crossover with what CubeSats can offer, but certainly this kind of communications and data transfer, and it really probably comes back to IoT, narrowband type connectivity in remote areas. We know that the mining sector in particular is very sensitive about the price they pay for telecommunication services. So if you've got an idea for maybe using an IoT type methodology, then the mining sector will care about that. And then in the agriculture and natural resources, a couple more points there. So once again, connectivity capability that enables the adoption of new technology. So integrating that ground-based services with the space-based networking, managing key infrastructure, and supporting things like natural assets and animal welfare. Again, more IoT focused. Whole bunch of technologies in our technology roadmap, and we've got projects across all of these categories underway at the moment. Just a few little snapshots of some of them there. And after a couple of years into SmartSat, we organised our thinking to have major demonstrations, we call them capability demonstrator missions. And these ones are where we're going to gather up a whole bunch of the research capabilities and industry interests and try and do some high impact demonstrations in space. At the moment we have 3 of them that we're publicly talking about. There's a couple of other ones in development you might be able to hear about from me or Carl if you buy us a couple of beers tonight. This one here is the one that's furthest along the pipeline. So the Indo-Pacific Interconnector, Indo-Pacific Connector I think they normally call it, it's actually capital C, IPC. It's a defence-led one, and that's about telecommunication services networking across the Indo-Pacific, and not just the telecom, but also the services that you provide from a sort of a constellation of smart satellites over that area. We're working with CSIRO and others on the Aquawatch program, and that's looking at managing Australia's inland and coastal waterways and the quality thereof. And we're very interested to do some work in the disaster resilience area. We now call this one iSky, it's eye in the sky. We don't really have the financial case worked out yet, so those additional end users who actually bring some cash and will really buy those services, but it's such a public good thing, but obviously this country really suffers, so we're still trying to build that case. Now, since I last gave a presentation, we've had some great news. The Defence Department and other partners have announced this RMS Starshot, so it's the Resilient Multi-Mission Space Starshot. So it's a DSTG-led program. It's going to be 4 or more satellite missions over approximately, how many years? Is it 10 years? Anyway, the first 2 of them have already been decided upon. So the buses are going to be this type of bus. This is the Arrow 150 bus. It's developed by Airbus, overseas of course, but they're going to bring these buses and put Australian payloads on them for this defence-led initiative in the area of resilient space systems. So we've got a bunch of projects coming out of existing SmartSat research, which we're now actively transitioning into missions that will fly here. So these first 2 will go up in the next 2-3 years, and then the RMS Starshot mission will progress into further missions which haven't yet been fully defined. We also have the Aurora Space Cluster, many members here in the room today. So here are the startup members of the cluster. There's a bunch of supporting members as well who are on this slide. So in total we've got around, Tim can correct me, 50 or 60 members at the moment. And so Aurora, in my way of thinking about things, is SmartSat's way to connect to the startup community. The startup community is more agile, it's closer to the market in many cases, so it represents a quick way for SmartSat to research its, to transition its research outputs into the marketplace. The Aurora cluster members don't contribute cash to our research program, but we definitely want to work with them to help identify commercialization opportunities early. And in fact, that is happening. There are many successes already. One of the ones which is probably closest to the heart of many of the people in the room here today is Hero Robotics' work. So that was a project that Hero Robotics got to do under the SmartSat research program. We do invite Aurora members to participate in specific cases alongside our other paying industry partners. And that project is going very well. We also have these node projects. So in fact, I've mixed 2 things together. So Hero Robotics is an Aurora cluster member, but they also participate in a New South Wales state node project. These are projects which are up to 300k in research value. That was originally 100k. And we have nodes in New South Wales and Victoria, and we have a hub in Queensland. It's the same thing as a node from this perspective, but they're focused on Earth observation. So one of the keys about these state node projects is you don't need to be a core or supporting partner of SmartSat. You don't need to bring in that standing contribution into our research budget. but you do need to bring 1/3 of the value of your project, whether it doesn't have to be 300 pages, it can be less. But 1/3 of that's got to come from your industry partners, essentially. Good timing. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.